Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. It's hello from me, and it's hello from Sasha the Guzzi dog. Sasha, what's the best motorbike in the world? Moto Guzzi. Very good. Okay, it's wiring today. Oh, look. Moto Guzzi wiring nest. Oh, no. Yes, the time has come to do some wiring on this bike. Okay. Now, what shall we do with this? This is the harness of the Guzzi. This was mounted where normally the headlight would go, and it's pretty much a copy of what would normally be inside a Guzzi headlight. We've got all those fuses, all those bullet connectors, and the previous owners have given us some extra connectors, some extra colored wires, added all kinds of things on, including Japanese switchgear, which in itself is not a bad thing. But oh wow, look at all these extra wires, and where do they go, and what do they do, and what shall I do? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my own wiring harness. Now, I could go and buy one. But unless you get exactly the right harness for that model of bike, and then that model of bike has all standard equipment on it, you're going to have to alter it. And sometimes you have to alter them quite substantially. So when I'm rebuilding bikes, I generally do the wiring myself. And I've got a system of colors which is in my head, which sort of semi-replicates the Lucas colors, but not exactly. Now, these are some of the colors that I could get locally without having to hunt too far. And so what do we got? Right, well, we've got black. Now, this is negative earth bike, negative ground, so that's going to be my negative. I've got red, which is going to be my feed, my positive feed for anything that doesn't go through the ignition switch. So this is probably going to be live all the time. I got my browns, which will be horn and stoplight. Blue will be lights. Green will be a neutral switch and one or two other things, probably turn signals, indicators. Ordinarily I use white and yellow for ignition. Now the bike only has, now these are for twin contact breakers. This does one side, that does the other. Now this bike has only got one contact breaker, so I'm just going to use white, which leaves me free to use yellow for other uses. Now, in addition to that, I've got some hockey tape, some red hockey tape. This is just a fabric tape, and I use it to mark my wires in case, say I've got two yellows, and to differentiate one from the other, and for whatever job they do, I will put a little bit of red on the end of one of the wires. So that's for identification purposes. It's just cloth. It's not insulating tape, and I deliberately use a color like red because ordinarily I'll use black insulating tape wherever it needs to be used to try to cut it down. And then all of this, when it's finished and it's on the bike, will be run through a piece of armored plastic conduit. Okay, now this is a wiring diagram that I'm following, and although it's for an Eldorado, it's not for my Eldorado. It differs in so much as it has a starter button here, which is normally handlebar mounted. Now my bike has this ignition switch, which has a position for starting like a car, so you turn it to the ignition arm and then you turn it again to start the car. Bike. Now look at this one. What do you think? Yeah, it's push-in bullet connectors. You know how much I love them. And it's got hot at one time, and you know, it's 50 years old. So are we going to use it again? No, we're not. I'm going to have a remote ignition switch down close to the battery, so I don't have to run feed wires up to the ignition switch in the heads in the headstock at the top of the forks, and that will sort of cut down my wires, but it'll also cut down the danger of that red wire, live all the time wire shorting out. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm not using bullet connectors. Like I said, I really hate bullet connectors. I hate the plastic connectors that you see on bikes as well. They always let water in, and they always let corrosion in. They're always trouble. I mean, I've chased troubles on Land Rovers and cars and motorbikes that were made in the 70s with bullet connectors, and I just hate them with a passion. So I'm going to use these type of connectors. Now, before you jump down my throat, I'm not going to use them in the way that they were designed to be used. You know, these were designed to be pushed on and crimped, and they come in these big kits, and I've had this kit for a long time. Now these are okay. Now I used them when I jerry rigged a ignition switch for the bike. This is the one that I used for a while. They're okay for temporary, but the biggest problem with them is on a bike, and especially farm machinery as well, you know, they vibrate, the wires vibrate, and then they snap off inside, where ordinarily you would crimp them with a jolly old crimping tool. So they're okay for a while, and they're very convenient to make a repair in the field, or a temporary repair, but long term I do not like them. I would use a proprietary what they call it, well, the solder-on ones, you know, the regular brass coloured solder-on ones, but I haven't got any. And my last foray into town after an hour's drive, they didn't have any, and honestly after a while you get fed up of asking, but I've already got these, so I will use them. So what I will do is I will strip the plastic off, then I'll bare off my wire, and I will fit it into, I can't do it, can I do it? No. I'll put it into the connector, like so. Sometimes if you've got room you can double them back. I'll give it a tiny crimp with this, just enough to hold it while I work on it, not too much. Give it a crimp. And then I will run some solder into it. Yes, this one I did earlier, made a bit of a mess of it, but yeah, you just get them nice and hot, and then just put some electrical solder in there. And I don't bother with a soldering iron. I just use this old ground blaster. It's gonna work. Yeah, handy little things these. Always take them camping. Best way to start a fire, you know, a campfire, or to get your camp stove going. Don't burn your fingers. I like to use the alcohol ones, and I don't like to be close because it'll burn your fingers. So I love these things. Just, you know, just fill them up and away you go. Fantastic. So we've got that, and then obviously we'll have a little bit of shrink wrap on the cable, the wire. We'll run that back up to the connector, and then we'll just shrink her on, and that will keep the corrosion out. And corrosion is the big problem because it will creep down your wires. I'll keep the corrosion out, and if you haven't, you know, because you've got this little bit of reinforcement here which is right next to the cable, you don't get the problems with the vibration. So that's my little trick. Probably there's a bunch of electricians just wincing at this and saying, oh god, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But anyway, I'm just a farmer. I do what I have to do to get the job done. So yeah, so there's my starter button. It's rated at about 45 amps. It's off an earth mover, so I think it'll handle this bike okay. And I'll make a bracket and I'll put it about there. So then in an emergency start, I'm going to take my hand off and try and start like this. I can just pull the clutch in, thumb this, give it a bit of throttle and go, hopefully. So what's next? Yeah, I talked about the ignition switch, which is not going to be there anymore, so I'm going to get a separate ignition switch. And I'm going to put it in this region here, close to the battery, at a place where I can get at it. So it'll probably be a tractor type ignition switch, because that's what I'm used to, or something like that. We'll also have a battery isolator here, so that will isolate the battery from the bike. So if I park her up, I'm going to activate the battery isolator. So if you think you can come up to this bike, if you can find the ignition switch, then you've got to find the battery isolator before you can fire it up and ride off on it. Obviously, that's not going to stop you from picking it up and throwing it in a pickup truck, but we do our best anyway, don't we? Yeah, so that's going to go there. My fuses, everything's going to be fused. These are waterproof fuse boxes, normally used on boats. So you've got power going in there, and that silver one, and then you've got 4 fused circuits coming out there. And you can just see, I believe it's a 15 amp fuse in the end one. There's nothing in the others at the moment. So you can put whatever value fuse in that you want, appropriate to whatever circuit it's going to be. So you can have ignition, lights, turn signal, horn, auxiliary lights, whatever you want to put on. You've got 8, and I think 8 will be ample. And the fact that they're waterproof is a bonus too. There'll also be a main fuse from the battery to this, of a higher value than any of these. So probably a 35 amp fuse coming from the battery to this. Originally I mounted this on the battery clamp, but I changed my mind about that because I don't really want it moving. It was just a random thought I had, and yeah, it might work. But I'm going to fit it, somewhere in this region. I'm going to have to work out where everything goes. The biggest bugbear with this bike is the size of the air filter, which goes there ordinarily. So then your battery goes here, so it doesn't give you a terrific amount of room. There might be room on top. I'm going to have to get the side panels, try them out. So a bit of fiddling around there. Also got to work out this rubber hose. I think they're available again, but they're very expensive. And the biggest problem is gluing them to the back plate here. So I'm not quite sure about that. I may rig something up, may weld something up, or I may have 2 filters or whatever. Don't want to go pods because I don't like, well, especially I don't like the K&Ns. I don't think they filter very well. Don't care what anybody else thinks, but I like to have a big paper filter. You don't see K&Ns on big earth movers, do you? No, you see great big paper filters, don't you? So that's that. The hole there is for hopefully being able to adjust the clutch. And then this rubber battery cushion goes there. Hopefully stops the mud from splashing up underneath. If not, I'll give it a bit of silicone. Started the wiring. These are the wires that are going to be going to the dynamo, to the generator, which isn't there at the moment. Waiting for a belt to come for that, and then these are going to be connections for the battery, taking the power, the regulated or controlled power, back to the battery to charge her up. So that's that. Nothing else to say. Seat's a bit of a disaster. Gonna have to try it out this year. Problem with this is the vinyl is okay, but the fabric underneath is rotten. When I tried to stretch it around the back, it all ripped. I put this plate on the back to hold it together, and it looks bloody awful. So I'm going to cover that with a sheepskin or a bead rider for the season, and then decide whether I like it or not, whether to get it reupholstered professionally or whether to just go buy a seat. That's that. Quickly brakes. The brakes bled absolutely fine, no problem at all. Bled very easily, bled it mostly on this side, got it 95% there. Just a couple of bubbles out the other side, and then my lever is as solid as a rock with what I believe is just the right amount of travel. Obviously we're going to have to try that on the road, see what it's like, but worked out very well. DIY brake hoses, braided stainless, nylon lined, can't go wrong. And that's it for now. So until next time, it's goodbye from him, it's goodbye from the Guzzi dog. Look after yourselves, take care of one another. Rubber side down, Guzzi side up, keep it shiny. Enjoy your riding for the summer. Goodbye.